Her husband cheated. Her world collapsed. And in the silence, he showed up. Her brother's best friend. One hug turned into 5 years of secret love. No one knew. Not her husband. Not her brother. But secrets don't stay safe forever. He got a girlfriend. And just like that, she lost the only thing that made her feel alive. This isn't just about betrayal. It's about choosing love in the shadows and learning to let go in the light. She never meant for any of this to happen. But when your heart is already in pieces, sometimes the wrong comfort can feel like salvation. Have you ever been like Lindsey, so hurt, so betrayed, that the person you weren't supposed to turn to became the only one who truly saw you? It started 5 years ago. Lindsey had been married for nearly 7 years. To everyone else, she had the perfect life-warm house, dependable husband, a circle of close friends. But behind the doors of that perfect home, things weren't as they seemed. She found out on a Thursday. Her husband had been cheating. A string of messages left open on his laptop. Her name wasn't even hidden under a fake contact. Lindsey didn't cry at first. She froze. You know that kind of silence where even your thoughts seem to stop? That was her. Her world went silent while the truth screamed in her face. The argument that followed shattered what little peace was left. Words thrown like knives. Her husband didn't deny it. He barely flinched when she asked him why. And when he left the house that night, slamming the door behind him, she collapsed on the kitchen floor, trembling. That's when Chad showed up. Chad had been her brother's best friend since college. He was studying with her brother that week, preparing for a high-stakes government interview. They were staying over in the guest room. Chad didn't say anything. He just looked at her for a moment, his face soft with concern. And Chad, quiet, kind, gentle Chad, wrapped his arms around her. It wasn't romantic. Not yet. It was just a hug. But not just any hug. It was the kind of embrace that catches your broken pieces so they don't hit the floor again. Lindsey didn't want to interfere. She knew Chad and her brother were working hard toward that exam, so she stepped back. She bottled everything up. She wore her pain like armor, kept her distance, stayed out of the way. She waited until they passed. She even congratulated them with a smile, watching them celebrate their success. But something had changed. Something small but undeniable. A connection had sparked in that one quiet moment. She tried to forget about it, to pretend it didn't mean anything. But the truth? That night, for the first time in months, she didn't feel completely alone. And that small flicker of warmth would one day burn through everything. It happened on a rainy night. The kind of rain that doesn't just fall, it presses against the windows, soaking through silence like it's trying to wash something away. Lindsey had been up late. Her husband hadn't come home again. No text, no call. Just absence familiar by now, but never easier. Chad had dropped by to return a book her brother had left behind. That's what he said, but Lindsey knew. And when she opened the door, something in his eyes said he knew too. Neither of them spoke much, not at first. He stepped in, and she made coffee. They sat across from each other at the table. 2 mugs, 2 people pretending they weren't aching for something they couldn't name out loud. Then she whispered, "Why did you hug me that night? Chad looked down. His hand ran along the rim of the coffee mug. Quiet for so long, she thought he wasn't going to answer. Because you looked like no one had in a long time. That was the moment. She reached for his hand. And this time, when he held her, it wasn't just comfort. It was want. It was years of loneliness and silence and pretending. It was the sound of something forbidden finally crashing through the walls. That night, they crossed the line, and it didn't stop. For the next 5 years, they became a secret chapter in each other's lives. A chapter written between text messages, hidden glances at family dinners, rushed phone calls when no one else was home. They never talked about love. Maybe because putting a name to it would make it too real. Or maybe because deep down, they both knew it was always temporary. But the truth? Chad made Lindsey feel alive again. Like she wasn't just somebody's wife. Like she still mattered. Like someone saw her, not the role she played, not the mask she wore her. He listened. He remembered things her husband had long forgotten. He asked about her dreams. He laughed with her, cried with her, held her when her world felt unbearable. And she gave him a kind of safety he didn't have anywhere else. She believed in him, even when he doubted himself. She was the quiet place he ran to when the world got loud. But every time she watched him walk away, something inside her cracked a little deeper. Because secrets have a way of corroding even the most beautiful parts of us. And deep down, she feared the clock was always ticking, because nothing that fragile can survive forever. It started with a silence she couldn't explain. Chad wasn't texting as often. The good morning messages had stopped completely. Phone calls that once lasted hours now ended after a few minutes or didn't come at all. When Lindsey looked at her phone, there was nothing. No unread messages, no missed calls, just quiet. But not the comforting kind. The kind that feels like something is slipping away, and you're the only one who notices. At first, she told herself it was just work. Maybe he was overwhelmed. Maybe he was trying to create distance for her sake. He'd always been the more careful one, the more cautious one. Maybe he was trying to protect them. But even that lie couldn't last. She finally knew something had changed the day she opened social media and saw his face, not in a memory or tagged post, but in a brand new photo. He was smiling, happy, and he wasn't alone. A girl stood beside him, tucked under his arm, her head resting lightly on his shoulder. She had that easy kind of closeness, the kind you don't have to think about, the kind that's real. The caption read simply, "My person." Lindsey's heart didn't drop, it collapsed. There was no warning, no conversation, not even a slow fade into goodbye. Just a picture, a title, and a horrifying realization that she was no longer the secret he cherished, but the mistake he was moving on from. Still, she waited. She gave him time to bring it up. Maybe he didn't know how. Maybe he felt guilty. But the silence stretched until it became unbearable. So she asked. They met in a quiet cafe near the river. Not their usual place. This one felt unfamiliar and personal. Like it was chosen on purpose. Somewhere no memories lived. Chad looked tired, nervous, like someone carrying too many truths. He said he'd met someone a few months ago, that it wasn't serious at first, But then something shifted. Not because he chose someone else, but because he had already left long before this moment. He had started building a new life while she was still living in the ruins of their old one. And Lindsey? She sat across from him, holding back tears that didn't need to be shed anymore. Because the truth was, she always knew this day would come. They said goodbye without touching, without lingering glances or promises to stay in each other's lives. Just a quiet, mutual understanding that it was over. The days that followed were heavy, not just with heartbreak, but with realization. Realization that she had spent years being someone else's secret and calling it love. That she had accepted pieces of attention instead of asking for something whole. She had stayed in a marriage that betrayed her. Then she clung to a man who couldn't fully choose her. She had been surviving, convincing herself that emotional scraps were enough to keep her going. And now, for the first time in years, Lindsey was truly alone, but it didn't feel like punishment. It felt like freedom. She began to rediscover herself. Quiet walks, journaling, dinners that no longer felt lonely. She cried, healed, forgave. Because healing doesn't always come from someone else. It comes from facing your own pain and learning from it. Chad was a chapter, not the ending. She was, and the love she needed began with herself. She no longer waits for texts or bends to fit into anyone's life. Now, Lindsey is writing her own story boldly, openly, and without shame.